G'day Jeff Adventures, Terry King here. Welcome to the channel and welcome to another video on our FJ45 restoration. First of all, you gotta forgive the Richard Simmons look here, but it's 45 degrees out at the moment in the shade. It's probably more than that in the shed, and I just gotta keep that sweat out of my eyes. I can't see a bloody thing. So what are we going to do in this video? Today it's all about dismantling the cruiser. So we're going to strip this thing down to its bare bones so I can get it down to the chassis and sandblast the chassis. First things first, I'll pull this bull bar off here so that I can actually get in the front end a little bit easier and then just sort of work our way back, I think. I don't really have a plan, but when you pull things apart you really can't go too wrong, can you? Oh well, we'll see. Let's get stuck into it. Okay, first things first, I'll try and juice everything up with some WD-40 because something tells me these are gonna be a bugger to get off. Well, holy guacamole, it come off. Wasn't expecting that. Gotcha. Where are you at? Oh, that's a heavy bull bar. That's a two-man lift, that one. Whew. I suspect I'll find a fair amount of this stuff, but I've got a small crack here in the chassis that'll need to be welded up before I get this thing blasted. So just got to make note of that. Next up, I'm going to pull off these fish plates with these tow hooks. All right, fish plate and hook off. That wasn't too bad. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going through each of these wires and just making up a little label out of some electrical tape and labeling what they actually do. So this one, for example, I know goes into the back of the headlight bucket. That one, for example, I've got no idea. So I'll just label that as no idea. And I'll do that with the entire wiring harness as I slowly disassemble it from front to back. So that little sign there just says right-hand headlight. Well, just an update, folks. I'm still plugging away, pulling this wiring out. I've got this side pretty much cleaned out. Got the passenger side pretty much cleaned out. A couple of rogue wires running to the back of the car that I've got to disconnect, and then I can pull everything through the firewall. What I've certainly been trying to do is mark everything with a little bit of tape. I'm not exactly sure why, because I doubt I'll be using pretty much any of this wiring harness. But anyway, that's what I'm doing at the moment, and I'll continue to do it until we get the wiring completely stripped out of this thing. First body panel that I've taken off. And you know what? She's in pretty good nick. Not a lot of rust in that one at all. This side's got a little bit of cancer in this front edge. And it looks like somebody's tried to bog it up with one super bodgy weld. Ooh, that's nasty. We'll chop that out of there and replace that. There's a hole in that panel there. There's some bog dripped down there. So once that gets sandblasted, there might be a little bit more demons in this one than what it first looks like. I anticipate, or I won't be surprised, if we break one or two of these off. All right, that little sucker's not coming off. So we'll just leave him soaked in juice for a while. I'm afraid I'm going to have to get the grinder out for those. So it's just sitting there, it's off at the moment. Okay, so grab it. as high up as you can. And
I'm a bit shorter than you. Okay. Or flipping it over.
just set it down so you can get your arms better.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Wide to the front.
Okay.
And set it down on the front of the chassis.
Okay.
Okay, now set it on the ground. Okay, I can take it.
Okay.
Thanks. Come over and stand beside me. Grab this guard. I'm going to take this bolt off and this guard will come off.
Okay. Heavy. Okay. Awkward. I didn't realize I couldn't touch under there.
Excellent.
Excellent. It's really good.
This is awesome. So this is the underside of our guard, and it's completely rotted out. Now I've got a replacement guard, so that's cool. I love these sort of bodgy backyard repairs. Here's another piece. It comes off of a Weet-Bix tin, and that was welded up underneath of there and then bogged in. So that is going to take pride of place hanging from my mirror when I get this thing finished, because I just love these bloody backyard bodgies. That's just gold. And there it hangs, pride of place. That is gold. Of course, all of these screws are impossible to undo. So I got to use an impact driver to try and budge them. Playing the game, more or less. I wouldn't want to try and undo these suckers without an impact driver. I can give you the tip there. What do you know? I got them all undone. Thought that was going to be a lot harder than it was. There is the biggest bit of cancer that we've got to deal with, but that's not actually too bad. I'm quite pleased with that. That's easy enough to fix. And the bit below it is perfect. Driver's side got some cancer in the same spot, but not quite as bad as the passenger side. Again, that's very repairable. That's a better look at what we're dealing with from a rust point of view. Not bad at all. Little hole there. That section's a wee bit thin. Very thin. Along the back of the cab is fantastic. Solid as. Driver's side. Got some cancer there. That's thin right there. The rest of it isn't too bad. That's bloody excellent. That'll be all fine. Over here, what do we got? That's good as well. I'm pretty happy with that. No patch panels on this piece at all. Sweet. It's mercifully cool today. We have had a heat wave over the last week or two, and finally it's broken. So today I'm going to spend the rest of the day pulling apart the dash, disconnecting the wiring harnesses, and getting this tub ready to pull off the chassis. I have no idea what some of these switches do, like these two here, which have been hacked into the dash. No idea. But I'll mark them with a bit of tape and a label. Gotcha, the main wiring harness. Not sure what we got going on here, but there's some garden hose tech screwed to the firewall. That's a class act. Garden hose was machine screwed to the firewall and went up to the vent and had these water clamps holding it on. That's gold. Alrighty.
Hang on.
It's in the hot cab.
You want to sit down there?
No, you guys are pulling yours.
Oh, okay.
So you guys come on up,
Watch that toe ball there.
and then we'll go down and you go on.
Yep. Good, there we go. Excellent. So the purpose of this video is to get measurements on where the engine is sitting inside of the chassis, because once I take this 6-cylinder out and put the V8 in, I'll need some reference points. So to the top of the rocker cover, from just rear of the steering box, that's 535. 535 on this side as well. Top of the air cleaner to the top of the spring perch is 810. Top of the air cleaner to top of the spring perch is about 820. From the crank pulley to the back of the chassis, along this edge here, is 200 mil. From the fan to that same measuring location is 155 mil. From the fan to this edge here. From the fan to the back of the motor is about 880. From the fan to the back of the gearbox is about 1540. The length of the gearbox is 650. That's from the bell housing, where the bell housing bolts onto the engine block, to the end of the transfer case. From the ground to the bottom of the sump is 450 mil. The gear stick location is 290 mil, rear of where the bell housing bolts up to the motor. And the transfer case stick would be about 330 mil from the same location, the rear of the engine. Okay, time to pull the motor out of this old girl. have it. One removed F motor, one 4-speed gearbox, one transfer case. Ready to be sold. Time to strip this panel down, getting it ready for blasting. Those are crusty old rubbers. This is kind of interesting. This paint pen markings on the bottom here. I don't know whether those are factory markings or whether that's aftermarket, like a wrecking yard, for example. If anybody's got any ideas, drop it in the comments below. I'd be very interested to know what that means. That seal on the top edge is definitely not factory. That's just a bit of foam with a little bit of that reflective coating on it. And silicone. Awesome. This is coming off relatively easily. That's a bonus. I want to take this off with the blade because I suspect that the sandblaster, the sand would probably just bounce off of this stuff. Pretty pleased at how easily that came off. Unbelievably, it's got the factory interior light. Hopefully you can get those aftermarket. I suspect that hole drilled there was for the seat belts, probably the sash belt. Now, unfortunately, this glass has got spatter all over it. Looks like welding spatter or perhaps grinding spatter. So I'm not going to be able to reuse this glass, unfortunately. There we go. Yeah, not going to be able to use that. Listen to this. It's all bits of spatter embedded into the glass. This side's exactly the same. It's all spatter in the back glass again. I bet somebody was in the tray grinding something inside of the tray at some point in its life, and all the sparks shot towards the cab. Same thing, full of spatter. Bugger. Small little rubber grommet. I think that might be where the jack handle sits, maybe, or maybe the seat rests up against that. Not really sure. But there we have it. That panel is in remarkably good condition. A little bit of surface rust only. That will blast up very nicely indeed. That glass has got a crap load of overspray on it, and it too has got pitting from the angle grinder. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to use that either. Bugger. Looks like I'm replacing all of the glass in the back cab. Now I got a little sandwich bag here, and I'll just mark this windscreen. Put all the little nuts and bolts and clips and everything. That's the latch for one side of the roof latch. Must be another one there and another one there, which I'm missing. Obviously to hold some wiring of some description, perhaps the wipers. Because the wipers on this particular model are up on the top. pull off these demisters. I think they're demisters anyway. There we have it. A little rubber grommet. I don't know whether that's factory or not, but I plugged a hole. Now I've only got one of these windscreen holder downers, so I hope this stuff's available aftermarket. If not, I'll have to make a trip to Mr. Landcruiser or somebody like that. I see. So that bolt's there, and that bolt's over top of it. Now here are the two nastiest bits of cancer. That's a 10mm spanner, so you can get an idea of the size of that hole underneath the hinge. And that's the other side, which is significantly worse. So I'm going to have to chop all of that cancer out of there and refabricate that entire thing. Awesome. Bit of weather stripping that goes between the turret and the front windscreen. That's been off once before because there's some little bits of silicone along the frame. So this has got a little piece that sits in between the windscreen rubber. I've not seen that before, but it's not a bad little system. Hope you can get that sucker in aftermarket form. That glass is in not too bad a shape, but if I'm going to be replacing the glass in every other panel, might as well replace the windscreen while I'm at it. I've already loosened all of these off while this was still on the car, and I could actually get an impact driver on them, so they should come out with relative ease. That's it. And I guess you can't put these on the wrong side, can you? Because that's not going to fit over on that side. So I don't need to stamp them and mark them. Time to move on to the bonnet, and she's in a lot worse shape than what I originally thought. If you have a look underneath that front edge, that is solid bog from one end to the other. Looks like we've got bog on the flats on both sides. So all these cracks that you see in this front edge and these holes, that's just solid bog. A little juicy squirter. Now these are going to be fun. They just spin. There's a slot on the top of the nut. That's that corroded. I think I'm probably just going to have to chop them off. That's the easier way to do it. While I'm here, I just thought I would satisfy my curiosity as to how much bog's on the front of this. The answer to that question is a shit ton. That whole front edge there is rotted out. Big chunks of bog just smeared over top of the holes. That is the way not to do it. Not quite sure what we got going on there, but it's all kinds of bad. Let's flip that bonnet over. And there's what we got. That is where the little latches connect when you drop your windscreen. And we got big holes there. Now I'm going to put a 79 series bonnet scoop on this, and that actually might get cut out of there. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one. Here's our roof, and check this out. That's the feel of real steel. No fiberglass here, all solid steel, which is awesome. That roof has been off before as well, because that is not original Toyota. Now, this is the worst of the rot in the roof. So that's a bonus. So there's a bit of cancer there in the front that somebody's filled up with bog. Actually, I think that's on the back. No, that's on the front edge. So a few bits and pieces there that I'm going to have to chop out, but not too dramatic. Back edge of the roof, there is no bog whatsoever. And amazingly enough, there's no dings in the roof. It's actually very, very straight. All right, here's our front fill panels for the guards. This one's got a big, ugly, daggy weld. Obviously, there's been a hole there and somebody's migged it up, and there's MIG dags hanging off of it everywhere, so it's going to need to be chopped out of there. Other than that, these panels are in pretty good shape. I don't know whether they're prone to rusting or rotting, but these ones are okay. Now, there's our front guard, and there's some crustiness happening on this one. It's a big bit of cancer there where the, I think that's where the indicator bolts. And there's a bracket spot welded onto the back side, so I'll probably have to chop that out of there, repair the rust hole, and then weld that bracket back on. I'd say that little plate there, pop riveted, is not factory. Get ourselves a pin punch here and knock these rivets out. And that's what nastiness that's covering up. Nice big hole in the top of the guard. I just love this Bodgy Brothers work. Sensational. Now it's time to do a little bit of this. Tub thumping. That kill me. Seriously though, this tub has got a bit of cancer in it. Somebody has welded a bit of angle iron here and bogged up the back side of it. Just lovely. This side here is much better. There's no cancer in that. Oh, a little hole here, but nothing too serious. Nothing that I can't cut out and patch up. This driver's side body mount, that's cactus. I'm gonna have to cut that sucker out of there and replace it. And some bright spark has drilled a hole in the firewall and then popped it in with a few sheet metal screws. And it looks like a bit of silicone as well. Nice one. So I'll take that out of there as well, and we'll have to patch that. You can see down on the bottom of the tub, here and here, those body mounts are gone completely, so those need to be replaced. As far as I'm aware, there's 4 body mounts on these, the 2 down here and the 2 up top. So it looks like I got to do a bit of replacing on 3 of them, and the 4th one, it's actually in pretty good nick. So, hallelujah, 25% hit rate. I'm loving that. Here's a bit better view of that angle iron welded up in there. You certainly do get the Bodgy Brothers stuff on these old jiggers, don't you? That's a better look at the driver's side body mount now that I've got the old crappy mount out of there. And she's pretty cactus. What I'll do, however, is I won't take that off yet. I'll get it blasted so that I can find out where the spot welds are. Then it'll allow me to drill the spot welds out and take that out of there. Then I only need to clean it up from underside and chop out the cancer. Only, he says. Okay, we'll disconnect our little AC vents. Spring was easy enough to get out. What about this hinge pin? Oh, nice. Sweet! Just like that. And there is a little seal around these suckers as well. Hopefully I can get that aftermarket. These little plastic inserts that the back shelf goes on are not coming out. Not freely anyway. Got it. So there's where we put the fuel in on the driver's side. But if we come over here onto the passenger side, there's another fuel cap. Obviously that one's being put in at a later date. So I'll grind off all of these rivets pull that panel out of there, and we'll have a big bloody hole in here that's going to end up having to be patched. There we have it. A nice oblong, nasty hole to fill in with a whole bunch of spots where the rivets were. So I got one crack in the frame that I'm going to weld up before blasting. I've drilled a hole to terminate the crack and then just ground out all the shit out of it. Alright, that's it. We'll call that quits. Chassis and body now are all tied down. I've got a nest of straps running here, there, and everywhere. And that's it. We're off now to the sandblasters to drop him off, get him blasted and epoxy coated.